last time you met a scarecrow, a tin man, a lion? You probably know all about the Wizard of Oz, right? Am I on? I'm on? Okay, good. So apple throwing trees? You ever met any of those? Wicked Green Witch? Yeah. So we're talking about the Wizard of Oz this month in our Sizzling Summer series. Every July and August, when it gets a little warm around Scottsdale, we decide that we're going to do something fun. And we'll do books, or we'll do movies, or cartoons, or superheroes, and all sorts of fun things. And this month we decided to do the Wizard of Oz and look at some of the metaphysics of that, but also look at the yellow brick road of freedom. Because July is obviously all about freedom with our 4th of July celebration, and that's what we're talking about this month. And last week, well, my talk today is called Breaking the Chains. Breaking the Chains. And last week we talked about how free will and choice can actually bind us, because we get stuck in those beliefs that we've set that may be limiting. So those can be binding to us. And we use the opening segment of The Wizard of Oz. If you remember the movie, shot in 1939, that whole first 20 minutes or so is black and white. It's kind of a sepia tone, and it's on the farm in Kansas, and it's dusty and gray and all of that. So it really kind of sets us up for that restriction, doesn't it? It feels a little restrictive. And today we move into Technicolor. We're moving into the Technicolor phase of the movie as Dorothy opens the door to Munchkin Land. And if you remember that scene, she's coming out of the black and white being shot of her in the house, and she opens the door and it's all color out there. It's all color out there. And from that perspective, Dorothy right there is breaking chains, isn't she? Because she's breaking through that life she had. She's breaking through the black and white farm life she had into Technicolor and magic and mystical and munchkins and good witches, right? She's breaking into something totally new. And she's realizing that, as she says, that famous line, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore, right? She recognizes that new perspective. She's not in Kansas anymore. And so the next thing that she experiences is that glowing orb of light that's coming at her, right? She's all alone, except this glowing orb of light begins to come in, and out of that emerges this beautiful, what looks like a princess. And they begin chatting, and she finds out that her name is Glenda, and in fact, Glenda is a good witch. And Dorothy is surprised, because her paradigm, her perspective on witches is ugly and green, right? Witches are ugly and green. And she's going, no, not all witches. I'm the good witch from the north. And she was beautiful, wasn't she? She was beautiful. And she helped Dorothy. She helped Dorothy. She then begins to meet the Munchkins. And in meeting the Munchkins, they love her, because they find out that Dorothy's house dropped out of the sky and killed the Wicked Witch of the West, who had been terrorizing the Munchkins. So they loved Dorothy. They thought she was awesome. But it didn't take long until the Wicked Witch of the West, her sister, showed up. And she wasn't happy. She was actually a little bit mad. And she wanted revenge on Dorothy. She wanted revenge on Dorothy. And she threatened her. She threatened her. But then Glenda stepped in to save Dorothy and to distract the witch. And she said, but don't forget the magical ruby red slippers that are still on your sister's feet under the house. So the witch went to get the slippers, and they magically disappeared and wound up on Dorothy's feet. Glenda, right? Glenda got them over on Dorothy's feet. And the witch was again very angry, and that's that other famous line that we all know so well, where she says, I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog too. Remember that? These are classic lines, aren't they? So that's where she says that, and that scene right there. And you can see Glenda again is protecting her. She's got her staff up in front of her, protecting her from the Wicked Witch. And Dorothy, this is all great, and she's like, okay, I just want to go home. I just want to go home to Kansas. Auntie Em needs me. Can you help me? And Glenda says, no, I don't know where Kansas is. I can't help you. But maybe the wonderful Wizard of Oz can help you. She says, great, where is he? She says, he's in the Emerald City. She says, where's that? Follow the yellow brick road, right? And that starts that whole wonderful scene. You can hear the music. It's going to haunt you all day now. Yellow brick road. And so that starts that whole beautiful scene. Follow the yellow brick road off out of Munchkin Land to search for in the county of Oz for the Emerald City. So just start on that. Have you ever felt that stepping out into an adventure? Have you ever had that feeling, that call, answering that call to step out into an adventure in your life, to do something new? It can be exciting and terrifying, can it? It can be both of those emotions. And I'm sure Dorothy, as she began to put her first ruby red slippered toe on the yellow brick road, if you remember, it was like a Nautilus spiral starting out, that she felt that excitement that this was the path to get her home, but she probably felt some trepidation because she was all alone at that point and heading out into the unknown in a foreign land that she really doesn't even know where she is. So I'm sure in that moment she felt both of those emotions, the excitement and the fear. And it's much like when she stepped over the threshold from the black and white, opening the door, not knowing what she was going to find when she opened it. It was that excitement, but probably fear too. She didn't know what was on the other side of the door. And I think the black and white part of the movie, moving to color, really demonstrated this visually for us as well as emotionally, that idea of change and stepping over a threshold to something new. So I remember in thinking about this and thresholds and stepping out and stepping on adventures and things, when I left Virginia as a young woman in 1979, and I was traveling with a girlfriend. We were in separate cars, but traveling together to Texas. I was moving to Dallas. And I remember pulling out of the driveway and having that feeling of excitement. Wow, I'm going on a big adventure, but also my own, a little remorse, a little remorse about leaving home, and a little fear about not knowing what the journey was. But I had a map. I was 19. I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof, right? At 19, weren't we all 10 feet tall and bulletproof? I got a map. I can get there. I'd seen the TV show Dallas. I knew what I was getting into, right? Yeah. So I just wasn't sure what I would find. But where does it start? What does it take for us to take that first step of adventure? What if I wouldn't have? What if I would not have said yes to that call to move to Dallas? How would my life be different? Hard to say. But where does it start? What is the first step? Is it the thought and the idea? Or is it the physical first step? Believing in the power of the mind as I do, I think it's the idea. And for me, it was that idea that first began to come in with, is there more than this black and white life that I'm living here in this small town? And I believed that there was. And so I began to plant that seed, and I began to nourish it, and I began to do some research and find out what it would take, and I began to prepare, and I began to talk my girlfriend into going with me. I told her I was leaving, and she says, no, you can't leave, you have to stay. And it's like, come with me, right? The obvious question, come with me. Her parents happened to live in San Antonio, but we both were kindred spirits in that we knew there was more to life than that little black and white town that we lived in. So off we went. The rest is history, as they say. Needless to say, I met lots of, scarecrows and tin men and lions and wicked witches and a few horses of a different color and a couple of munchkins. But, it was all an adventure, right? It was all an adventure. The Scarecrow in our story, Let's talk about the characters. The Scarecrow in our story. What was his deal? He needed a brain, right? Said he didn't have a brain. Didn't think he was intelligent. And many of us have probably been told that. You know, he was interesting because he talked, he reasoned, he solved problems. He even taunted the apple trees because Dorothy tried to pick an apple and the apple tree started attacking her. So he started taunting them about how bad their apples were so that they would throw the fruit at her as a weapon and she could catch it and have something to eat. But that takes a brain. That takes some smarts to know how that works, right? So he's kind of a smart cookie, but he didn't think he was. He didn't believe he was. How many of us have been told that? How many of us have been told that we're not intelligent? Maybe an adult that we respected growing up, maybe a sibling. You're no good at math or English or sports. And we owned it. We believed it. And we carry that belief, that chain of consciousness. We carry that burden with us today. So, what about money? What messages are you carrying there? What about holding a job? What messages are you carrying there? These are all things that we don't come in with, but we learn them. We're taught this, we're told this, and they become these chains that Ernest Holmes talks about, the chains in consciousness that bind us to that belief because we believe it so strongly. We were also created of infinite love, were we not? We were created of infinite love. Divine intelligence, that is what we are made of. That is what we are created from. But what are your beliefs about love and relationship? What are your beliefs about love and relationship? How they are, how they should be, how they can't be. Those are all beliefs, aren't they? Those are all beliefs that we either through experience or through messaging have a chain in consciousness about that. Our Tin Man, I need a heart. I don't have a heart. But yet, when we meet him, he's singing, he's dancing. He's very loving and kind to all of the other characters in the movie. He takes care of Dorothy very well. He's got a heart, doesn't he? He demonstrates that he has a heart, but he doesn't believe he has a heart. He doesn't believe he has a heart. So what beliefs about love and relationship are you carrying that belong in that black and white movie and not in your technicolor life that you're here to experience? Have you built a tin fence around your heart to protect you? And when was the last time you ran into a lion? Rough and gruff and tough and full of all sorts of steam and everything. And then when we met the lion, that's what he was doing, wasn't he? He was attacking the group in the forest and growling and snarling and jumping around. And then he went after Toto. And we saw Dorothy do what? She smacked him on the nose. And he cried. Our big, tough, rough lion cried. Because he's really a little bit of a bully, and he didn't have any courage. He didn't have any courage. Have you ever known someone like that who came across all rough and tough and bullying-like and yet had a heart of gold and was really a pussycat? Really a pussycat. So all of these are beliefs or chains of consciousness, as Holmes calls it, that bind us. And Ernest Holmes, again, founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, author of The Science of Mind, has written a book called Love and Law. Actually, it's a compilation of a bunch of his lectures. But in that, he says, we begin one by one to break the chains of human consciousness which bind us. We can do that. We can break these chains of our human consciousness that bind us. There is operative through the consciousness of the individual that law of their life, which says the person is sick and subject to being sick. That's a belief. That is a belief. We have got to absolutely break it and emancipate ourselves from it. How are you going to do that? You're going to do it by the same means that brought about the condition, by thinking. Because everything is produced by thought. You're going to do it by thinking into universal mind the truth about yourself. The highest truth is that we are power, spirit, substance. We are power, spirit, substance. We're made in the image of God. We are perfect. And in that perfection is perfect intelligence, is perfect love, and perfect courage. In that perfection, we all have that. The courage to follow our call into something greater in expression. And this doesn't have to be a physical journey like Dorothy and the gang went on. This can be a deeper dive into your spiritual practice, into your spirituality, inner space. That can be your adventure. It can be calling someone for a cup of coffee. That can be an adventure for many of us. It can be starting that manuscript finally, or whatever the call is that's on your heart that's calling you forward into expansion, into growth. Answering that call, it can start out as a gentle nudge, a quiet, gentle nudge. It can get loud sometimes too, can't it? It can get loud sometimes too. Knowing that we are guided and guarded, however, and I think that was what Dorothy knew. When she started out on the yellow brick road, she just had a sense that she was going to be okay. I didn't sense any fear in her. It was like, okay, I'm off to see the wizard. Let's go. And then the people she met along the way, we saw that big compassionate heart of hers. Come on, the wizard can fix everything. Come on, he can give you a brain. Come on, he can give you a heart. Sure, he'll give you courage. And he's going to give me a home. That's kind of a cool perspective on her. Our heroes did, as they continued their journey to Emerald City, through the poppy field. Remember the poppy field? That was the Wicked Witch trying to stop them. They got through that. Glenda helped out a little bit. They get to the Emerald City. They get to the door. They knock. Denied access. They talk their way in. They get inside. They're told they can see the wizard. They're denied access. They talk their way in. They see the wizard. The wizard actually says, I'll grant you your desires. But you just have to do one thing. You have to prove to me you're worthy of your desires. Now, that's not how the law works, that we have to say, here's my desire. I put my desire into the universe, and then we have to prove ourselves worthy. But the law will reflect back to us if we believe we're worthy or not. And was not what the wizard was suggesting of them, reflecting back to them their own insecurities, because they already had what they needed. The Scarecrow had a heart, had a brain. The Tin Man had a heart, and the Lion had courage. But they didn't believe they had it. So he had to have them go prove. Had them go prove that. And what did he tell them to do? Bring me the witch's broomstick. Bring me the witch's broomstick. The thing that they feared the most was the witch. Remember, she rode across the sky, surrender Dorothy? She wanted Dorothy. And now the wizard's saying, go to the witch and bring me the broomstick, the thing that scares you the most. And many times that's what we must face, isn't it? The thing that scares us the most is the thing that will free us the most. And that is our journey sometimes. Chains of consciousness and limiting beliefs hold us back from being the magnificent expression of the divine that we've come to be. We have perceived fears, chains that we can break, the binds. Holmes reminds us that fear begins and ends within the mind of the one thinking it. Begins within the one and ends right here, right here. Diane and I were talking about golf earlier, talking about the game of golf, and game of golf is right here, isn't it? It's the 6 inches between our ears is the game of golf. We're playing against ourselves. And that's where the fear begins and the fear ends, is in the mind of the one thinking. The nightmare of its binding and restricting thought is broken as we turn to a belief in the goodness of God, the presence of the creative mind, and the feeling of love that never fails. As we do this, a peace steals upon us. a faith rises up again within us. Overcoming fear, standing in faith, is just as true today in 2020 in the face of this global pandemic and fear that we're going through as it was in 1939 when this movie was made. Standing in faith. So let us diligently practice our principles and anchor ourselves in faith, knowing that in our own wholeness we can break those chains that bind us of fear, and we can accept the challenges before us. We can accept the challenges before us and prepare to face our fears. Prepare to face our fears. Maybe capture our own witch's broomstick. So let's look at some practicing the principles this week. And just a reminder for those online, if you want to sign up for the weekly Mindful Monday email, you can do that through the website. Just send me an email and I'll get you on that list. And for any of you that are not on that already, it's in the lobby. You can sign up for that. And I send an email on Monday mornings with the notes and quotes and things that we're talking about today, that you can take those then and work with them during the week. I mean, we're all about applying the principles. How do I apply this teaching in my life to transform it, to use it? And that's what this is about, is to have you something that you can take throughout your week to continue to work on what we're talking about today. So that's available in the lobby. So number one is, what fear is being reflected back to you today? As I said, our heroes made it all the way to the wizard. They survived all of the stuff along the way, only to be told, prove your worthiness. Prove your worthiness. And again, the law is not going to tell us to prove our worthiness unless we don't feel that we are worthy. If that's what we're planting into the law, is that sense of unworthiness, then that is what's going to come back. That we're going to have to establish, we're going to have to discover that. We're going to have to discover that. So our practice this week is journaling. It's journaling. When a time maybe when you recall that you were on the brink of achieving a desire, and that whole thing of worthiness popped up, maybe in the form of, in your own heart, am I worthy to do this? Or maybe it came and you sabotaged it. Or maybe there was a resistance to it. Oh, that's too much. That's too much. Yeah, I've been treating for it, but that's too much. Or maybe there's something you're calling forth right now into manifestation. Journal on that and imagine you have it. Imagine you have it. And write down in your journal all the reasons you are worthy of it. All the reasons you're worthy of it. And see what comes up. See if you have any resistance that comes up in you around it. I'm treating for $100,000 next week. Okay, great. I am worthy of receiving $100,000. And it's going to come to me, and I don't care how it comes, whatever that is. And then see if you get stopped with disbelief. Impossible. There's no source in my life that could ever do that. It's not going to happen. See what comes up for you. Listen and make notes for yourself. Number 2, break the chains of consciousness. What chains in consciousness are you allowing to limit your life? And we know when we look at our life and see what's reflected back to us, that's where we can spot these limitations. This is where we can spot these limiting chains in our mind. It may be something that's old and dusty from way back when that we're still hanging on to. I think I've shared the story before about my 10th grade math teacher who informed me that I could go no further in mathematics. I did not have the aptitude for it. And I believed it. I owned it. I was devastated. I was embarrassed. And I was mad because she did it in front of the whole class. I don't have any memory of that at all. But it was interesting. I owned that for a long time. Oh, no, I can't do math. Oh, no, I can't do math. That was an affirmation that I continued to say until I realized I can do math and do it pretty stinking well. So I began to let go of that. I began to transform that belief. I began to heal that belief. And I had to work on healing the relationship because my sister's still really good friends with her. If you're watching, I love you. So it was really interesting to work through that. But I see how that works and could be today still a chain binding me in consciousness of my capabilities in life. So who's told you something like that? What chain do you need to break? Our practice is to use visualization, to recall and find where those dusty old beliefs might be hanging around, and to break that chain and allow yourself to open up. You can feel, if you've ever seen a chain, if the link's open, it just opens up, doesn't it? And it's free. So we become free of that binding link that we've set up in our minds. We can become free of it. So use visualization to break that limiting belief that you have and open yourself up to greater expansion. Dorothy, Scarecrow, Tin Man, the lion. We all possess some of those tendencies, don't we? We can see ourselves in those characters in some form or fashion. And just know that we too can see the wizard. We too can transform that. We too can get back home. We're made of the perfection of the divine, in the image of God, as Ernest Holmes says, and we're here to express that magnificence. That's really what we're here to do. We're the leading edge of consciousness. Spirit as us expressing. We're here to express that. So let's continue our journey on the yellow brick road to freedom and walk in faith. Walk in faith. So it is. Would you join me for an affirmative prayer? How good it is that we recognize God and nothing else. There's not God and there's just God. The one power, the one presence, the one life that is in, through, and as all that is. It is the infinite harmony and order of the universe. And I know that all of that is here now, in, through, and as me as an expression, as it is in, through, and as everyone gathered. For we are one, united in the unity and the wholeness of life, as the full divine expression of God. And as I know that unity, I know that uniqueness that we each are within that unity, I speak my word for and about each of us. As we step onto this path of freedom, as we take this journey, as we answer this call to the deeper dive into spirit, into our own inner space, into our own inner wisdom, and into the full expression of the magnificence of who we are, we do so anchored and grounded in faith, and knowing that we are not separate from that from which we are manifest. We are one in God. We are one in God. Full of life, full of desire, and full of intuition and inspiration and wisdom and intelligence and courage and heart. We have all of that. And we carry it within us, ever available for our tapping into that. And for anyone who has anything on their heart today that they are seeking prayer around, I know as we lift that into the consciousness of this prayer, into the one mind, that whatever needs to be healed is healed, what is revealed with clarity and with ease, that there is abundance and flow and prosperity and divine right action. Whatever the need is, it is answered right here, right now, in this moment. And so it is with great joy and thanksgiving that I release this prayer into the action of law, into the activity of mind, as I accept that it is done. And we affirm this together by saying, and so it is. And I'd like to invite everyone here today and online to join us in our spiritual practice of tithing and giving and circulating our financial good through the community. And there's several ways to do that. We have a basket in the back of the room if you'd like to leave your donation there. We have online giving on our website, which is through our PayPal account. We also have an app these days called Give Plus that you can download on your smartphone, set up your account, and you can make your donations there. And I believe there's a QR code that's going to pop up on the screen a little bit later that you can take a picture of, and it'll launch you right into our website as well, to the PayPal account. So lots of different ways that you can make your donation. You folks at home, you can do that through our website. You can also mail your donation to our address if you would be more comfortable doing that. So all donations are gratefully received in support of our community and our mission in the world of continuing to advance our teachings out into the world, and we're doing that through technology right now, as well as those of you here in the room, and just delighted to have you with us. So I'm going to invite you to join me in our affirmation today. If you've got your gift with you, you want to take that and hold it over your heart and join me in our affirmation. I am an open channel through which prosperity flows. I accept the divine flow of goodness, ideas, and substance through me now. I am grateful for my full and prosperous life. So it is. And we'll say goodbye to everybody online. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next week right here.